Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I'm going to be giving a build update, talk about the entire fish room, what's new, how things are going, talk about the aquarium system itself, how things have been going now that the aquarium system has been running for a few months, and finally I'm going to give a preview of the main display tank, which I have started construction on finally after all these months. To start off today, I'm going to be talking about this tank right here. The first thing on the build in the fish room I want to talk about is the last major component that needed to be built, and that is the secondary sump. This is a 500 gallon capacity pond liner sump. It's about 10 feet long and 4 feet wide on the outside dimensions. It's filled up with about 250 gallons of water right now, as it's interconnected with the primary sump through a 4-inch interconnect line that's just behind me on the floor. Runs about 9 feet straight into that primary sump, and that holds the water level the same between these two tanks. Now, this was a pretty big project to get done, but I'm happy to have it completed. The return pump for the 400 gallon aquarium is sitting on this right now, so it's got about 3,000 to 4,000 gallons per hour of water flow getting pumped into this tank through gravity from whatever it's pumping out into that tank. And that water is actually coming out on this side of the tank as I've extended that interconnect onto this side of the tank, so I didn't have a giant dead spot on this end of the tank. That allows the water to be dumped out here through a little PVC extension, churn up the water on this end, and then have to flow all the way back to the return pump on the far end. I've also installed an emergency drain on this sump too. Just because it's level with my primary sump, I decided to add in an emergency 2-inch drain. I don't have that plumbed in yet, as the water just can't fill these sumps to that capacity based on the testing I've done now. But when the main display comes online, I will be installing that plumbing so that if this is going to overflow, it hopefully won't go on the floor and it'll go down a floor drain. I've also added polycarbonate tops here to help control my humidity. I was initially a little concerned about using this corrugated material as there are spaces on it, but honestly, because there's no airflow in here, the humid air gets kind of trapped in here, and I haven't seen any major differences in humidity levels in this room or evaporation since this sump tank has gone online. With this done, I'm basically done with all the major projects that had to be completed in this fish room. I did, however, get a couple other minor things done, and I still have a couple other minor things to go. One of the other projects I got completed once the secondary sump was completed was this countertop. I wanted to utilize this space by the utility sink for water testing, for fragging, so I put a PVC top on this 2x4 and plywood frame here. It's just a freestanding table that uses this little narrow space and also just makes it a good working counter. I even included some towel hooks on here, which I think are incredibly important in a fish room. So just a good overall working space. I even made a little drying rack out of some PVC here for my test tubes, and also for beakers or flasks when I have to dry them out after I wash them. So just a nice little workstation. Just trying to give myself some convenience in this fish room, since there's going to be a lot of stuff that has to get done in here constantly. I will say I've been using this almost every day. It's perfect for doing water tests and titration tests at just the right level here with this white countertop too. I can see the color changes very nicely on here. Starting off with the aquarium system, why not go to the 150 gallon, because this is the easiest tank to talk about. This is where my non-reef safe fish are being held. I just had the Spanish hog before. I also picked up this beautiful Regal Angel. I just got it about a month ago. My local fish store, Reef Plus, was doing a maintenance job, and they were doing a tear down on an aquarium, and called me up, said, I got this beautiful angel. It's been in captivity for a few years, and I think it'd be great in your new system. And I said, you know what, I'll take them. And this is just a gorgeous Regal Angel. Matter of fact, the very first one that I've ever owned. And fish is doing great. I've also added purple pseudochromis into the tank because I love those little guys. Even though they're evil, they work great in a big fish tank. and I wanted to start adding in a few small fish into the system to start increasing the bio load slowly in here. Overall, these fish are doing well. The tank's doing well. There were some Aptasias and some Manchanos in here. I've been going in every 2-3 weeks and wiping out a few of them at a time, and they really haven't been able to multiply very quickly, and I've gotten them down to just a handful, so hopefully in another month or two I'll have them pretty much out of this tank. The 700-gallon Refugium tank is doing good. No problems or concerns back here at all. I've cut the lighting schedule way back on these lights. It was over 16 hours a day. And just the lack of nutrients in the system, while it is growing algae, it just can't grow enough of it. And it's been bottoming out my nutrients. So I've started cutting my light cycle back in here to hopefully not allow all those nutrients to get absorbed directly into the algae that's over here. I know it doesn't look like there's a lot in here, but there is an enormous surface area covered with algae, and that's why I want to try and cut it back. I will say the microfauna in here is just at an enormous population. There's pods everywhere. There's all kinds of other microfauna I've been taking samples of on the egg crate. The feather duster population is getting pretty nice in here. And this tank, you might see a couple pieces of blue tape in here. It's on here because I've been observing bioluminescence. A few times a week in this tank I'll come down. I've got a lot of bioluminescent organisms living on this egg crate especially, and I actually have started filming it. I actually put a video out not long ago. I finally got a camera lens that'll pick it up properly. So if I disturb those organisms at night on this egg crate, I'll see bright green flashes of light, which I just think is just one of the coolest things out there in this hobby, almost better than the fish and corals and everything else. But overall, very cool to see this taking place in this refugium, and I'm very happy with it. I just can't wait to get a bigger bio load of fish in here so I could really let the algae start to take off in here, hopefully get some other macros going in here as well. Primary sump is doing really well right now. The skimmer is still doing a pretty good job of pulling out some waste every week. I have tried shutting my skimmer off a few times, but I've started to see my pH creep a little bit lower in the 7-8 range, and I just been trying to boost it up a bit. So I've got the skimmer back on. I recently added an outside air draw to it, so it's got a 1-inch line going into a venturi, which has helped a little bit, but honestly not as much as I thought it would. I might have to increase the amount of air being injected into it, which that's a project for another time. I've been dosing kalkwasser using my Avast Marine Calc Stir. It's still working well. Calcium reactor's not online yet. And overall, things are just working well here. The UV's doing good. No problems, issues, or concerns in this sump. Everything's just running the way that it should right now. The final tank on the list, of course, is the 400-gallon, which is holding the most of my coral right now. This tank is doing okay. I'm not very happy with it the way that it looks right now, but I'm not very upset either. Some of the corals are doing very well, some are not doing so well. And I'm going to explain a little bit about why that is. So this tank is only a few months old, and when I put all the corals in here, I have really high nutrients. I have a ton of hair algae growing in my temp tank. Things after, almost 6-8 months were finally starting to mature out, and that's when I tore it all down and moved it in here. Now, going from 150 gallons to 1,800 to 50 gallons to subsequently 2,100 gallons, which is what is in here now, there's no bio load in here to speak of, with just 5 fish that originally went in, and now I've added another 5 fish, so I'm at 10 fish, but not that makes much of a difference in this size tank, especially when the fish that I added were all small. Which is why I've been dosing phosphates and nitrates into the system. They've just been bottomed out at 0. I've been cutting the Refugium lighting cycle back. I've also been dosing and testing every couple of days and just slowly adding things to it. Alkalinity in the system is down about 9, so I'm pretty happy with that. I really like it in the 8.3 to 8.6 range, but I'm not going to complain. Overall though, I'm very happy with the way things are starting to go. The LPS are looking good for the most part. The softies are somewhat looking okay. Unfortunately, my Stereonepthia is pretty much all melted, which is a very big bummer because I had some beautiful looking colonies. I'm not too broken up though because they're all aquaculture corals and I can get them back, which is why I'm leaning more and more into, if I can't get it aquacultured, I just don't know if I even want it in my tank anymore. I've got a few big single polyps like the bubbles I like, but I've just been venturing more and more into, if I can't aquaculture it or get it aquacultured or maricultured, do I even want to start putting it in my tank? But that's a discussion for another time. I'm thinking another 3 to 6 months this tank will hopefully be balanced out and good to go. I'm going to keep adding fish to it slowly and going to keep things going in here. I might add a few corals here and there. I did add one piece of SPS, which was a frag of red dragon at my LFS they had there for 10 bucks, and it was doing great. I went on vacation for a week, came back, and it's been bleached. It hasn't died completely yet though because it's still bleached out, so maybe it'll come back. There's one little tiny piece of it over here that's still alive, but we'll just wait and see. It's going to take time though, and with 2,100 gallons of water, nothing's going to move fast in here. It's a time thing. Overall, the aquarium system is running good. I couldn't be happier with the way things have turned out overall. Yes, there's been some loss, and yes, everything hasn't turned out exactly the way I want it to, but it's the nature of this hobby. I just have to be patient with it. Now, it's time to talk about something that I haven't been talking at all about, and that is my new display aquarium. I've been working on it, and I have decided I am going to share some of it with everybody. I promised I was going to share some of the display aquarium build, and right now I'm going to be talking about this end of the tank. I'm not going to be sharing everything about this display tank, probably until it's up and running for a while, to make sure that I'm confident in the design, which means it holds water once it's filled up, which is quite a ways off as this is a very large build. But I decided that this end of the tank I'm going to share, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on here. I'm also going to tell everybody a couple of the dimensions of this tank, and the first one is the water height. Now there's going to be 32 inches of water in this tank. It's going to put it somewhere in here-ish, I don't know. But it'll be 32 inches of water, so I'll be underwater right now when this tank is actually full. And this stand here, the width front to back, is going to be 6 feet. So the tank dimensions I'm going to reveal to everyone, it's 32 inches tall and it's 6 feet wide, or meaning 6 feet front to back. The other one, I'm not going to tell anyone right now. It might not tell anyone until the tank's all filled up and running. But I've been working on this stand since June. I'm still working on it. I have taken a vacation in that time, so I have not just been full-time working on it. I'm also splitting my time on this and operating the new system, which is definitely needed to get my attention with maintenance on a weekly basis, which is why I've just been slowly progressing through this stand build. And this stand is using the same method of construction I used for my plywood tank stands. I trust it. It ran for years. I even kept those stands, rebuilt them here, which is with the 400 and 700 on. Again, I haven't seen any problems with that stand design. It works well. It distributes the weight of the aquarium on the floor. And in this tank's case, I'm not even going to go as tall as my original 720 gallon at 36 inches, and I'm going to knock it down to 32 inches tall, just because once you get to that height, you're really maxing out the water pressure on 3/4 inch glass, which is probably what I'm going to use here. And it also makes it more challenging to try and reach the bottom, which obviously is going to be a challenge in this tank no matter which way you look at it. There won't be a walking platform behind this one. I decided that when I was building the concepts for this tank, that with the width of it being 6 feet front to back, it's just not going to be practical to have a walking platform in the space that I have here. but I wanted to have a great viewing area to see the tank from multiple angles all over my finished basement. Now, one other thing I will share with this tank is that it is going to be a split display. There is going to be a section dedicated to big non-reef safe fish, and then the rest of it is going to be dedicated to a coral reef and everything that is going to be within it. But it's a lot of fun building this so far. Once this stand is completed on the whole thing, I'm going to go ahead and start the next step of this stand construction, which is going to be adding a plywood top on here. That's going to get screwed in to the stand legs all the way around. That's going to help lock the structure together so that it can't move in either direction. I do have a lot of horizontal vertical stringers on the sides and everything to help prevent it from shifting. I've also got to add some stringers horizontally in here just because of this 6-foot width. I want to make sure that I don't get any movement in here just due to the amount of weight. Now, I built this stand to have a level deck. The floor is obviously poured cement, it's not level, and that's why I went ahead and I got a laser level that'll shoot a horizontal line. I've been using 1/4-inch acrylic to sit on top of it, so if the beam's hitting this, I know I'm nice and level, and I can shoot that beam the whole length of the tank, the whole width of it. It's worked out perfectly to build a nice level deck here, which is ultimately going to be my tank bottom. Now, I'm going to be building this tank in a different method than my previous builds. I've done plywood tanks with epoxy. I've also built my pond liner tanks. And with this tank, I decided to do something a little different, and that is make a composite bottom, but I'm going to use all glass on the sides. And that, I think, is going to give me some construction advantages to just making it a lot simpler to build. It's also going to allow me to build this tank in a little different way than I have in my previous build. With the glass having a 2-inch overlap on the bottom and a 2-inch overlap on the top, and the canopy basically being supported from the ground and not the glass itself, I can build this entire stand, the bottom of the tank, and the canopy and cross bracing without the glass being installed or even having it on site. And that's the nice thing about this construction that I'm really enjoying, is that I'm going to build this stand and canopy section. I'm going to get all the electrical done, I'm going to get the plumbing done, and might not get all the ventilation and the drain line plumbing done, as it's going to need to go into glass, but I can do most of the work for this tank without needing the glass in it. I'm even going to go as far as to say this tank is going to get aquascape before I have glass. I want to really spend some time building an aquascape that I'm going to be incredibly proud of, with this much open space and, you know, who knows how much going the other way. I could safely say there's going to be some cool open sandy areas, some individual rocks, some different types of structures that I've never really done before, at least to the scale that I want to this time around. So I'm really looking forward to building that out and eventually sharing it with everyone, as I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. Once I have all the aquascaping and stuff done and I'm prepared, I'm going to go ahead and order my glass and bring it in. It'll be a lot of work to get done. I don't have a timeline to get this build complete. I'm thinking maybe in 2022 I will finish this build. I don't know 100% for sure if that's going to be the case, but that's at least a target for me to try and get this done. But this is the build. Happy to give everyone an update. Sorry it's been so long. Life has just been incredibly busy. It's still going to be for a long time, especially with this project. And that's the update I have today. If you have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below. Try to get to them as soon as I can. Of course, thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.